fights with passion, and he inspires.
Are you ready for a war?
All right, welcome back to From 8 Arbitration. And we had a hell of a day today in the convention. It was beautiful, and I'll talk about that in just a bit. But we have some shout-outs right now. Unfortunately, we're getting started so late that I lost a lot of my shout-outs. We'll do it again tomorrow after the general session. So, my man, go ahead and give your shout-out, brother.
Yes, my name is David Tennyson. I'm from Branch 763 in Columbia, Missouri, merged. Columbia, Missouri branch involves Columbia, Missouri, and 10 associate offices. I just want to give a quick little shout-out that we're here with Corey, and it's been great.
All right, my man. Any people you want to talk to?
No. I just want to give a quick little shout-out. They want to get on here. I know my branch president and my vice president came to you yesterday, want to know if I could be on here, and they said, sure, come on up.
Absolutely, my man. Well, I appreciate you, brother.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right.
Hey, my name is Brian. I am from Branch 361, and also I was in Branch 47 in Denver, Colorado. I just wanted to tell everybody in Denver, hey, I don't know how many of you listen, but you better start listening. Start from the beginning, and I know I've told a couple of you, start from the beginning and just listen to everything, take some notes, because this man is awesome and he wants to educate, and I've been saying that for years, but nobody listens to the fat white guy. And not to mention Branch 361, anybody that's listening out there, if you listen and you just sit by, stand up, start standing up, getting educated, stay educated, start talking about this stuff. You don't need to hide in the shadows anymore. Just get out of the shadows, because we've got a big sun right here, right in front of me, that wants to everybody come out of those shadows. But that's me, Brian Bogle. I'm not afraid to say my name.
All right. I appreciate you, bro.
Hey, no problem, man. We still got to get dinner, man.
Hey, I'm ready.
All right.
All right, y'all have a good one.
Appreciate it. Thanks, man.
Two down all the way. That way it's only yours picking up anything.
All right, and I've got a couple of people that have reached out to me to do some shout-outs. So, to all the badasses from Southern Suburban Merge Branch 4016, they're representing. Love you all. Also, I'm going to be on the Workroom Floor podcast to talk about MOU negotiations. And sorry I couldn't be at National this year. So there's another one. That's from Mr. John Poskin. Here's one that's got two shout-outs for us tomorrow. My Branch 371, Keokuk, Iowa. With me as the steward and my best friends, Branch 314 in Council Bluffs, Iowa. Friend's name is Jason Kelly. I'm going to give a shout out to Alan Glasscox and the carriers in Gulfport, Mississippi, Branch 1374. And so there's the shout outs that were sent to me today. Unfortunately, we went a little bit long today, so I lost a lot of my shout outs. Picture day went fantastic. Had a lot of people down there to take pictures. That was encouraging, and it was a beautiful sight. And so I appreciate all of you that came and took pictures with me with the From 8 Arbitration shirts on. Today was a very special day. We started hearing the appeals, and it's exactly what the CLC, when we went up to the mics on Monday, exactly what we wanted to happen. The president's not going to tell us how we're going to vote, if we can vote, or all the things that he was talking about in that letter. We decide what's going to happen. We are the body supreme, and so that's what happened today. All right, let's get to what everybody wants to talk about, and that is the convention itself, the appeal, day one. First off, let me talk about Mr. Gary Lang. Y'all remember Mr. Lang because he came on one of my episodes and was talking about how Renfroe screwed him over with these S&DCs, the MOUs that Renfroe signed with the Postal Service. Well, he got his chance today to confront Renfroe, and it was beautiful. He exposed Renfroe as kind of a rookie on his first convention because he got Mr. Renfroe to debate him about the MOUs, and he thrashed Renfroe. It was quite comical, and everybody in the place was getting a kick out of it because Renfroe had no answers. He continued to press him on why he changed the language of the MOU. He arbitrarily changed that language to benefit the larger branch. Matter of fact, he cut Renfroe off one time and he said, "I'll tell you exactly what I think. You did it for votes," and got a big applause. He pressed Renfroe constantly, and Renfroe refused to answer his questions. He kind of beat around the bush a little bit because he knew he was wrong. And so for those of you who are in Mr. Lang's branch, you should be proud of him. He represented y'all well, and the congregation acknowledged that. He did a fantastic job, and it was quite comical to see him press Renfroe like that, and Renfroe do everything he could not to answer his questions. But it kind of exposed Renfroe a little bit as the rookie, because he got him to debate him on the floor. That should have never happened. But he got him to debate him, and he lost that debate terribly. So to Mr. Lang, kudos to you for pressing him like that. He had been bitter for a long time, so today was his day, and he took advantage of it. Now, if I was Mr. Lang, I would follow that up with Article 10 charges against Renfroe for him doing that, and then he would have to answer the question. And I would just go ahead and do that. Just file Article 10 charges on Renfroe, and let's settle that like that, right? Also, had Shirt Day today. It was phenomenal. Had a great time. A lot of people showed up. Man, it was humbling. It was encouraging. I've had the best time this week meeting people, people coming up to me. But what was funny today was people were talking about how their presidents heard that we were doing this at 9:45 this morning. Well, they called this emergency meetings in these branches at 9:45 this morning, trying to keep them away from coming in there with these shirts on, which is quite comical. It shows you the effect that we're having, where branch presidents are calling these emergency meetings at 9:45. Now, the thing starts at 10. At 9:45, just to keep them away from coming up there with their shirt on. And I thought that that was quite comical. What was not comical are the business agents who got involved with telling their membership how to vote on these charges. And that was rampant. Too many people messaged the people of the CLC. I've got numerous messages about business agents influencing the vote by threatening presidents and other people with positions that if they don't vote for Renfroe, there will be consequences. That's intentionally trying to interfere with the vote. And anytime you use your position to influence a vote, you should have Article 10 charges brought up on you. So if I'm city letter carriers and I voted for a delegate to come up here, and the business agent threatened them that if they didn't vote a certain way, this would happen, I would bring Article 10 charges up against that business agent. And there are two specifically that I know of that people called out by name. Both of them are white males. If y'all want to know who they are, message me and I'll tell you. You can ask if it's yours, and I'll tell you yes or no. And bring Article 10 charges against them for trying to influence that vote. That's what I would do, because you should have your own say when you come up here. You're representing the city letter carriers. You're not representing as a delegate these business agents. They've already had their vote when the executive council voted. They've already had their opportunity to vote yea or nay on these charges. So for them to try to influence the vote by threatening branch presidents, which is what they've done, by threatening DRT members and others that they will lose positions if they don't vote a certain way, I just bring Article 10 charges against them. I think that's absolutely pathetic that happened. And it did, and it's continuing to happen. So, and I know for a fact that came from the executive council, had meetings where they had told the business agents to do that. Now, my region, we didn't hear that. We voted how we wanted to vote, and that's the reason my region was split 50-50. But other regions, the entire region didn't stand up, and those are the regions that were influenced by their business agents. So as far as the charges are concerned, quite interesting. I thought I thought it was one of the more interesting things that I've ever been a part of. Chris Jackson was on the floor. He made a motion that Fred Rolando would convene over the process. That was voted on unanimously. Brian Renfroe was on the floor. Each one was given 20 minutes to plead their case. And then each party was given 5 minutes of rebuttal. Mr. Jackson made a very compelling case. I thought he did well. He argued what he could. Now, you had to tiptoe on this one charge. If there was one charge that was one that Mr. Renfroe had the advantage of, it was this one, because he had the mitigating factor of alcoholism, and that is a huge mitigating factor. But Mr. Jackson tiptoed around that as best as he could. This was the one about the AWOL, where he left, didn't tell anybody where he was going, left nobody any notes or anything as far as collective bargaining. Tolino had no idea. He hadn't heard from Renfroe. And so he made a compelling case. I thought Renfroe did a good job of playing the victim. He was very somber in his attitude. He didn't look up much. He had a pen in his hand, and he worked that pen to death, just twiddling with that pen. And so I don't know whether that was him nervous or thinking, but he had a somber mood. I thought he did a great job. They coached him well as far as what to do. I still would not use him on the stand if I was an advocate, because you can be somber. You can talk about alcoholism. You can talk about, I went through this 6-day outpatient type rehab thing. It was not AA, but he went through this 6-day outpatient stuff, came out. That got, applause from people, but he has still not apologized for what he's done. And to me, you have to apologize on the stand. That is the time that you make amends, that you let the arbitrator know, hey, I'm sorry for what I've done. I'm sorry for who I've hurt. And he did not do that, even though Mr. Jackson caught that in rebuttal, and he brought that out. He still hasn't apologized today. When it came back to Renfroe's rebuttal, he still didn't apologize. And he will not apologize because he's narcissistic in his nature. And when you are narcissistic, or when you have narcissistic tendencies, you refuse to acknowledge that you're wrong. You can't see that you're wrong. And you could see that it was impossible for him to acknowledge that he was wrong when he was on that mic. Now, here's what would concern me if I was Renfroe. You had a mitigating factor, and y'all remember back when I had the episode on mitigating factors. Alcoholism is a mitigating factor. Even though he's not apologetic, and he was defiant today as far as it being apologetic, he was untruthful and got caught. Mr. Jackson caught him being untruthful several times today. The mitigating factor still rang true to a lot of the delegates, and he played that as well as he could. But what would have concerned me is that this is the one charge that Mr. Jackson was going to have the most difficulty with. It's because it did have the mitigating factor of alcoholism. And Renfroe won that vote 2,997 to 1,576. So 1,576 delegates did not buy his defense of alcoholism as a mitigating factor. And to me, that would be troubling if I was Renfroe, because this is the one who should have been overwhelming. Now remember, you're dealing with shop stewards, a room full of shop stewards. We defend people with alcoholism. That's what we do. We defend people with those mitigating factors of substance abuse. That's what we do. And even though he had a very good mitigating factor, I was an alcoholic during this time. I went to some 6-day counseling during this time. It was not AA. It was a 6-day counseling during this time. And that's the reason all of this stuff happened. You never got an apology. You never had any remorse. Now, he was, like I said, he was very somber. He would look down most of the time and would look up. And like I said, he was coached well. They did a good job coaching him on how to act about this mitigating factor. He never got emotional because he wasn't remorseful. But still 1,500 inside that room did not buy that mitigating defense, and that would concern me if I was Renfroe. Even though the NBA's influenced this vote by threatening their members, threatening branch presidents, even though that occurred, 1,500 in there refused to buy the mitigating factor of alcoholism. I would be concerned if I was Renfroe about that fact. Now, tomorrow you got the charge against Mr. Henry will be the first one. He loses the mitigating factor of alcoholism. He cannot hide under that blanket any longer. This is where it shifts to Mr. Henry, where he intentionally made false statements against Mr. Henry. Like I said, he cannot use the mitigating factor of alcoholism. He will be on the other side of it. Mr. Jackson had to tiptoe around this one today because it's well known that he's an alcoholic. Now, he said he's been sober some 400 and something days, but here will be Renfroe's issue tomorrow. When Mr. Jackson brings up the charges about Mr. Henry, this is what he's going to have to overcome. When Mr. Jackson talks about this specific charge, when you talk about making false statements against Mr. Henry, here's the issue that he's got. When you go to someone because you hear that someone has been, there's an allegation of sexual harassment or inappropriate conduct, say that I'm going to go to Fred Rolando, which is what he did. And you go to Fred Rolando and you say, hey, I've got a complaint of sexual harassment. I'm a brand new president. I should know what the protocol is, but I don't. We'll give him that. Say that he doesn't know. He had no idea. So you go to Fred Rolando and you say, hey, I've got a complaint of sexual harassment. What should I do? And Fred Rolando says, you have to go to Ken Raker, head of HR, and he will handle that for you. Now that's how you're supposed to, if you're going to go outside, that's how you should do it. When you say this, I have got a sexual complaint against James Henry, then there is an intent there to defame James Henry. And that's exactly what happens. You should have never brought the name of James Henry into it when you're talking to somebody else. When you do that, you are spreading false information because you do not know if it's true. It's an allegation. So that's the issue number one, is that you brought Mr. Henry's name into it. You don't ever do that. You say, hey, I've had a complaint against somebody. It's a sexual assault complaint, or it's inappropriate conduct, inappropriate touching, or whatever. I've got that. It's come to my attention. What is the proper protocol? Go to Ken Raker. When he introduced James Henry's name, that's a big problem that he's going to have to deal with tomorrow, and he cannot, because you should have never brought Mr. Henry's name into it. Here's the biggest problem that he has when he's going to have to defend himself against spreading false information. You go to Fred Rolando and you say, hey, I've got this complaint against James Henry. As a female said that whatever, and what should I do about that? You go to Ken Raker, head of HR. Okay, thank you. Then you go to Lou Drass and you say, hey, I've had this complaint against James Henry, and it's about inappropriate conduct, inappropriate touching of a female. What should I do? You go to Ken Raker, head of HR. Okay, thank you. Now I'm just going to start naming names. Then you go to Nicole Ryan and you say, hey, I've had this complaint against James Henry. It's about some kind of inappropriate touching of a female. What should I do? You go to Ken Raker, head of HR. Then you start going to people outside of the executive council, to branch presidents, and you say, hey, I've had this complaint against James Henry. It's about inappropriate touching of a female. What should I do? You go to Ken Raker, head of HR. Then you go to somebody outside of that and you say, hey, I've had this complaint about James Henry. It's about inappropriate touching. What should I do? You have to go to Ken Raker, head of HR. That's 5. He did that 8 times. He did that same thing. He will not and cannot justify that. There is no way, there's no way he will be able to excuse that away. First off, you don't bring somebody's name into it because you've not investigated it. You don't know. That's none of your business. If they say, hey, James Henry brushed up against me, then you can say, I've had this issue. Somebody's brought something up to me about somebody on the executive council. What should I do with that? That's what you do. But when you brought his name into it, you intentionally spread false information about Mr. Henry. When you went 8 times to 8 different individuals with this same story, you're intentionally attempting to harm James Henry. It will be very interesting to see how the body votes tomorrow, even though the business agents have strong-armed a lot of their members. And some of them are so stupid they're saying, hey, be careful who you vote for, because if you get Renfroe out of there, you got Barner. That's where we're at. That's how pathetic both of them are, is that we're saying we would rather have Renfroe than Barner. Well, hell, we're fucked if that's the case, man, because both of them are dumb fuckers. And, to say, don't vote out Renfroe because you're stuck with Barner. Well, shit, the shape we're in, man, the state of affairs we're in with these two dumb son of a bitches. But it will be very interesting to see how the body votes on that particular charge, because there is no explanation for it. He cannot get away from it. He will attempt to lie like he did today, and the body did not hold him accountable. He will not be apologetic like he wasn't today, and the body didn't hold him accountable. It will be very interesting to see tomorrow how the body reacts to this charge, because he cannot get away from the fact that what he did was intentional. You don't go to 8 different people about the same thing. You do not put Mr. Henry's name into it. You don't put anybody's name into it. It's none of the other people's business who it's against. When you did that, that was intentional. So it'll be very interesting. You got the strong arming going on, so you're going to lose votes that way because people are too scared of their business agent, which is completely foolish because they work for us. But tomorrow will be an interesting day. Today was an interesting day. It was historic. It was very exciting. Seeing the ebb and flow when you were in there of the congregation. You could tell at one point people were completely behind Chris Jackson. Renfroe was trained very well. He was taught very well. He was coached very well on how to act. He was very somber, like I said. And you could tell people were buying into this, I'm an alcoholic, which he is. I went to this 6-day counseling, which you could tell that that had an effect on him. He will lose all of that tomorrow. So it will be very interesting to see how this plays out. And then there'll be the last charge, that one of dereliction of duty, where he just didn't show up to these regional rap sessions. But he has the mitigating factor again of alcoholism, and he will be coached again on that. So a very interesting day, a historic day, and it was very entertaining, very exciting. When they had the voice vote, when the first vote rang out. And this is one thing that I did not approve of Fred Rolando, and I didn't like that he did this. And to me, it showed some kind of bias. When the voice vote for Renfroe rang out, it was loud. And Rolando, put his finger in his ear like, man, that hurt my eardrums. That was so loud. That let people know that he was recognizing the volume of the pro-Renfroe crowd. When the Chris Jackson crowd, we'll say it like that, when their voices were heard, it was equally as loud. And you could see him say, shit. Like that completely upset him that vote was that close. I mean, you could see him mouth shit when that happened. I think that he should stay away from that because he should remain neutral, right? Even though Renfroe's his boy and he put him in there, he should remain neutral. He should not do things like that. And that's what I took away from that. You shouldn't acknowledge one side or the other. because that plays with people. You have people out there that will, that will take that as Rolando picking sides, and he should stay away from that. But anyway, you had that. He did that twice because they were so close. When the Renfroe chant went out, it was loud. I'll give him that. But then when the one for Chris Jackson went out, it was equally as loud. When they did the stand-up vote, you could tell there was quite a bit of difference. I mean, you knew immediately by looking at the screen this was not going to be close. But still, 1,500 didn't buy the mitigating factor of alcoholism, and that would be concerning. And so tomorrow we'll get back into it. So hopefully that helped y'all, kind of put y'all inside there as far as what's going on. It was quite hostile at times, which is understandable. Both sides are very passionate, but take away the NBA's influence. It should be pretty tight tomorrow. Like I said, it'll be very interesting how he tries to get around what he did to James Henry. It'll be interesting to see who stands up in Renfroe's defense of what he did to James Henry. Another thing that I thought was very interesting, the Executive Council, how they voted today. It was very shocking to see those that stood up in favor of Chris Jackson. People that I would not have thought would have stood up. And so he lost members today. He lost numbers today with the Executive Council for those that stood up. And I thought that interesting. And so tomorrow we get back at it. Now, room 507, after the convention is over with, if you want to give some more shout-outs, come over there. Also, the CLC will be selling raffle tickets in room 507. And so whoever wants to come and get raffle tickets, please do. We want to sell all of them. So room 507 in the Westin is right there connected to the convention hall. Come over there and buy you some raffle tickets, all right? And I appreciate it. But if you want to give a shout-out, come over. I should have JB on tomorrow and maybe Tyler Vassar. I don't know. I've not talked to him here lately, but he was going to come on, but he may not need to now. So anyway, very interesting day, a historic day in the convention. The first time ever that a president has been held accountable for things that he's done via the charges. And so we'll see what happens tomorrow. And I'll see y'all tomorrow on another episode from Boston. All right, y'all take care. Have a good night, and I love y'all very much. Bye.